and a soul to maim.
All right, it's Morgan here with winterwarfare.com, where it doesn't matter what your rank is, the standards are the same. And so today's video, I'm going to leave you and we're going to go over a couple mission planning documents, which we're going to talk about here, the military decision-making process, and a couple other things that I will actually leave you links to here in a second. And so the purpose of today's video is to elevate you. What I always want to be thinking about, and this isn't just you, this is including myself, which is why I've put this video and these documents together. I'm always trying to think forward, to move forward, you know, to go from that smaller level and to start thinking bigger. And when we look at the tactical environment, there's actually a lot of planning that goes into that, a lot of high-level planning at the battalion level and higher. Of course, at a lower level, there's METT-TC, and we'll go over a little bit of that today as well. And so what I've put together for you is basically a summarized document that's going to show you the small unit commander that might be out there in the field, the professional citizen, and or possibly military unit guys out there that might be watching this. This is a summarized plan that I've put together showing the major steps of the military decision-making process. But before we get there, I'm actually going to go over a couple things of this document here. Tactical tasks. These are the basic tactical tasks. And before we get to the summarized military decision-making process, kind of like checklist that I've put together for you, and again, there'll be a link down in the description that'll go to our website. Now we can talk about that in a minute. But before we get there, I want to talk about some of the basic tactical tasks, and that's on this little cheat sheet that I'm also going to give you. There'll be a link to this. It'll take you to our website. The goal, you do not need to buy anything. It'll be a free document. We have some other free documents. Just go to store, and then other items or other cool items will be the path to get to that. In any case, on this document, what this is going to show you, the basic tactical tasks. On the left-hand side, I have types of operations and form of maneuver. And what I want to be thinking about, or what I want you to think about, or what I think about, this is just how my mind works. Again, my qualifications for this discussion are, I've never been on a command staff. I am prior infantry, prior airborne, also have a degree in economics, and with that degree in economics, I've worked at some very, very big companies and put together very comprehensive plans for those businesses to protect them, to hedge, to limit their risk. And that's essentially what military planning is. And if you look at even the business space, for example, you could go through a whole business plan, which is very, very similar to the military decision-making process. And you could go through that whole plan, and your business could still fail. And what that tells you is, over the course of history, there's been many military operations that have failed, and there's been many businesses that have failed, that have all had plans. There's very, very talented CEOs of companies that go bankrupt. And so that just tells you, and it tells me, that it's hard enough even without a plan. And so what I'm trying to do with this discussion today is to take you and your team, your small team, to a higher level of thinking with a very simplified, it's a very complicated plan, but I've simplified it for you. So again, we're going to start off with just the tactical tasks. And what I want to be thinking about there is, or a question to propose to you is this. Let's just say hypothetically, you know, shit hit the fan, or some type of scenario, you fill in the blank. Whatever that scenario might be, let's just say I give you a rifle. What are you going to do with that rifle? What kind of things are you going to do? Well, on the tactical tasks, these are the basic tactical tasks. What this is telling you is all the things that essentially from military science, military art and science, maneuver warfare. You know, these are the verbs, I guess, that you should be thinking about to fine-tune and professionalize what you're trying to do and what you're trying to articulate out there. For example, I'll just make an extreme. Let's just say I give you a rifle and say, hey, the enemy's over there. Okay, great. What are you going to do? Are you walking over there, or are you doing a movement to contact? Okay, as an example. So on the tactical task list, again, I will give you the link to this down below in this video. There's some things to think about. Movement to contact, attack, turning maneuvers. These are all the types of operations. Here I have actions by friendly. These are the things that you can do and think about. You can attack by fire, breach, bypass, clear, control, follow and support, retain. These are my types of fires that I have, and also I have some of the FMs referenced to these as well. For example, with fires, you could destroy, damage, limit, delay. These are the obstacles, obstacle effects, I should say. You could block, turn, fix, disrupt. These are the effects on the enemy. These are under the tasks or the what, okay? The tasks or the what. For the effects on the enemy, you can block them, canalize them, contain them, defeat them, destroy them, disrupt them, fix them. Also under the tasks or the what is information operations. You have offense and defense. On offense, I can destroy, disrupt, degrade, deny, deceive. On the defense, I can protect, detect, restore, respond. And then lastly, over here, I have my purpose. My purpose is the why, and you could possibly start at the back and work backwards. What are you trying to do just with this very simple checklist? And for purpose or the why, you can allow, cause, create, deceive, deny, divert, enable, envelop. So again, the whole purpose of going through the tactical task before we even go to this summarized military decision-making process sheet that I put together for you is just to say, you know, what can you be doing?
Nearby radio, mobile.
What can you be doing out in the woods other than just, oh, I'm going to go over there, I'm going to be walking over there, okay, and what? So this is formalizing and helping you articulate the small unit leader of what you could do. And again, this is based off of United States Army doctrine. So let's jump into the summarized plan that I have also put together for you. And I should back up a step because there was one more thing that I wanted to say. When you look at the tactical tasks, one other thing that I wanted to point out that I had in my notes here is if you are a small unit and you are, this doesn't just apply to, say, for example, a professional citizens group. This could also apply to even United States military forces. And what happens typically is even the United States military is fighting outnumbered. Since the Cold War, it's been in our doctrine that you will, as a professional United States soldier, you will be fighting outnumbered. That's just been a given with the number ratios of enemy forces around the world and the numbers of the guys that we have in a very similar and on a smaller scale way. That could be you. That could be you and your small team out in the woods, and you're outnumbered, okay? And so what I would point out to you is some things that you're going to be limited with. For example, when you look at the tactical tasks and forms of maneuver, you're going to be kind of limited. If you are the smaller force, you're going to have to think creatively, okay? That's going to include things like infiltration, turning maneuvers, raid, ambush, hit and run, and possibly if an enemy has poor OPSEC, doing sniper operations on them, okay? Things like that. That's what you want to consider. All right. Let's get into the military decision-making process cheat sheet that I created for you, and it is several pages long. But I turned this into a PDF for you, and we're going to go through each of the major steps of the military decision-making process. And so what I want to say about that before we get started, at a higher echelon in a military organization, somebody is going to be, you could possibly be familiar with METT-TC. you could possibly be familiar with receiving the op order. Okay, where do those things come from? Maybe you're performing METT-TC, but there's even another bigger level to that. And at a higher echelon within a military organization, battalion level and above, they're going to be running the military decision-making process. It includes these basic steps, which I'm going to go over here in a second with you. Intelligence preparation for the battlefield, METT-TC and OCOC, course of action. So you're going to look at friendly course of action and enemy course of action. What are they going to do? Yeah, you need to plan for that. And lastly, in this document, I created, at the very end of this, a civilian-ish, if you will, very simplified op order, okay? So this is, again, the whole goal of this is to take a very complicated military planning process and simplify it for the smaller unit guys out there, potentially, again, your professional citizen soldiers out there, or professional soldiers. Okay, so with the very high level, battalion level and above military decision-making process, they're doing things like looking at mobility corridors, lines of communication. They're using a lot of overlays. So imagine like a business presentation, okay, and in that presentation you're just looking at all the numbers and all the things that are happening and all these different possibilities. Those are just called overlays. They have an overlay for enemy positions, an overlay for terrain, an overlay for obstacles, all these different things. They're looking at satellite imagery. They also have different assets that you may not have access to. For example, indirect fire, you may not have access to that. You may not have access to air assets, air assault assets, and different things like this, okay? So that being said, you can still take this much higher level military plan, the military decision-making process, and take this simplified form and go at a much higher level within your small unit, wherever it is that you're operating, okay? So there's a couple key steps, and let's just go through these. So each one of these steps, as you turn through this, has a breakout section, okay? For example, intelligence preparation for battlefield. On the main document, it lists that as step 2. And on step 2, there's a further breakout that details in a little more detail what you need to think about and what's going to be important in that step for you. Again, you need to think about this as a very quick reference in the field cheat sheet to help take your plan, more strategic and above the METT-TC level. METT-TC is included in this, but so let's get into this. The first thing that you want to do, step 1 in the military decision-making process, receive the mission. In this case, you might be the one planning the mission. Step 1 might be irrelevant. Step 2, conduct initial intelligence preparation for the battlefield. And then I have some very quick sub-steps here. Those sub-steps for intelligence preparation of the battlefield: define the area of operations and interest. One quick thing I want to say about area of interest, I'll give you an example. You have your area of operations, and that's the area you're operating in, obviously. The second thing might be area of interest. So let's just say right here in my AO, 50 miles from here is a dam. Even though that dam is not in my area of operations, I still need to consider that dam in my area of interest. The reason why is because if that dam goes out, all the power around here might go out. So it's something that needs to be on your radar, I guess you could say. And if I turn this document, I go to step 2, okay, intelligence preparation for battlefield. As I mentioned, there's a further breakdown for you. The step, you want to define the battlefield environment, describe the battlefield effects using OCOC. What are the terrain and weather impacts? Evaluate the threat, determine courses of action. All those things are happening, including METT-TC within the intelligence preparation for the battlefield. Step 3, you're going to define the problem. And the little quick reference cheat sheet steps here are: you want to frame the tactical problem clearly, enemy and terrain focus. So sometimes your mission can be, it's a little bit misleading, but I'll say that it's Your mission could be enemy focused or terrain focused. You want to identify decisive points and critical vulnerabilities, align with hire's intent and mission variables. Step 4 in the MDMP is develop enemy courses of action. And then there's a breakout. You're going to want to go to step 4. In step 4, enemy courses of action. Determine enemy objectives in your AO. Identify enemies' most likely movement and actions. Things like this. Essentially with the course of action, I'm going to give you an example. Let's just say you have 2 attack elements, and those 2 attack elements are maybe operating close by on an objective or nearby or something like that. One attacking element could trigger the enemy to have a course of action. For example, let's say you're attacking at night. When you attack the enemy, one thing that this is just one example only, in your enemy course of action. Once I start lighting them up, are they going to start firing flares at night so they can see us? Or is that other unit attacking a nearby enemy unit going to alert the unit that, the enemy that I'm trying to attack, and then they're going to talk and set things off? We need to be aware and talking and putting those into our course of action. The other thing that I want to go over that's in this document is the step 3, which is included in the intelligence preparation for battlefield. I'm going to back up a step here because I left this out, which is the METT-TC and OCOC. And one thing that I put in this document for you is this is how you need to look at METT-TC and OCOC. You need to look at METT-TC because even at much higher levels, at higher echelons within the military in their planning process, they're using METT-TC, just like maybe many of the basic guys watching this video. You've heard your platoon talking about METT-TC. But what METT-TC really is, and this is how you need to think about it, METT-TC is looking at all the variables of war. It's looking at all the variables that you need to know and identify. METT-TC is a really badass and quick checklist. It's a quick reference, if you will, to put a little mini plan together. A much smaller plan than what we're talking about today. But METT-TC is going to look at those variables, and the critical part of METT-TC for you is looking at METT-TC through the lens of, for example, mission, enemy, terrain, and weather. Looking at all those elements of METT-TC, but looking at it as if, okay, for terrain and weather, do I have the advantage or does the enemy have the advantage? And you want to weigh those, because essentially you need to have enough things in your advantage that you're going to win, okay? It's an assessment. It's just like very similar to a pilot flying a plane. Okay, there's a lot of things going on in a tactical setting, even things that I'm trying to get better at. Okay, this isn't I'm just a normal guy. Okay, but things that I need to think about. But if you look at imagine a pilot flying an airplane, and all those little gauges are telling that pilot something. Okay, is the plane flying sideways? What's the airspeed? That's what METT-TC is doing. Okay, but it's going to help you gauge those variables of war, of whether you have an advantage or not. And a very important part within this document that I'm sharing with you, that you're getting access to, is this METT-TC and OCOC part. And because what I have in here is it's just a summarized list, because I'm going to make another video on this with a more detailed list. Because in my tactical field book, I keep a little checklist very similar to the one that I'm giving you, that's in this document. So in the intelligence preparation for the battlefield section is this breakout of METT-TC and OACOC, and in here the important part is looking at mission, enemy, terrain, and weather, but looking, do I have the advantage? These are examples of advantages. For example, for enemy, is the enemy unprepared, disorganized? That's an advantage to me. A disadvantage, some of these are obvious, okay, but you need to add to this. Take what I give you and add to it. This is going to be a starting point to you that it's going to very quickly and very easily take you to a much higher level very quickly with this document. But, for example, enemy, there's things listed on here where I would have the advantage under METT-TC and where I would be in a disadvantage. Same thing with terrain and weather, on and on, on and on. This is a little cheat sheet for you to think about METT-TC differently, but to also include in your decision-making process, your tactical planning process. Okay. So, step 3 is to find the problem. You want to frame the tactical problem clearly, enemy and terrain focused. We went over that. Let's go to step 4 of the military decision-making process, which is develop enemy courses of action. And under my little cheat sheet details sub-steps here, I'm going to go to step 4 in this, but very quickly this is going to tell me for course of action, I need to determine likely enemy objectives and the end state. Develop most likely and most dangerous course of actions. What's the worst thing that is possible that the enemy is going to do? What are they going to do? There's things that I need to think about and how they're going to react. You know, what weapons do they have? All these different things. Use doctrinal templates, terrain and enemy doctrine. Understanding the enemy doctrine, how do they fight? That might be something that you should understand in your course of action as well. And so let's go to step 4 real quick in that, develop the enemy course of action. And there's a little further breakout in here. Enemy course of action. Determine enemy objectives in your AO. Identify enemy's most likely movement and actions. Identify most dangerous course of action. Are they going to ambush you, flank you, attack you? Consider the enemy decision points and triggers. Build enemy templates based on doctrine and terrain. And then I also have a step-by-step guide for you, a very quick reference on analyzing enemy course of action. Number 1, these are all just kind of broken out a little more detailed steps within this plan for you. It's just by the numbers. This is like coloring by the numbers for you. This is going to take your small unit, small leader, tactical planning from color by the numbers, much closer to the Picasso level, okay? Not quite there, okay? But much higher, much more thought out and laid out process. Anyways, a little more detail here. Number 1, review enemy doctrine and patterns. Use draw D, defend, reinforce, attack, withdraw, delay. Assess the enemy composition and disposition. Identify critical terrain. Analyze time and space constraints. There's some things to think about too. Just to maybe back up a little bit step, because all these things kind of merge together of telling us how the plane is flying. For example, under METT-TC, time is a factor. If I'm attacking somebody, how do I want to use time? If I'm attacking you, I want to attack you in the quickest way possible. If I'm on the defense, time is the opposite. I want to delay time. Okay, that goes back to some of the tactical tasks that are on there as far as some of the effects that are, you know, in your new vocabulary. Within the time of METT-TC, if I'm attacking, I want to attack you immediately. I don't want any delay. I don't want any obstacles. I don't want any concertina wire. I need to know all those things. I need to get through that as quickly as possible. Defending is just the opposite. I want to delay time. I want to watch you coming all the way up this mountain and shoot you the whole way and watch you go through all my obstacles. Okay, I want to delay time. So, again, going back to this little breakout chart on analyzing enemy course of action, analyze time and space, we kind of covered that. Determine most likely and most dangerous course of action. Most likely, what would a rational, resourced enemy do? Yeah, you need to know that. And one thing that we've always mentioned in our videos is this: it's like two very good baseball teams playing each other. If you have two very good teams, and your enemy is not dumb, okay? If you have two very good teams playing each other, they're not going to let you beat them. You're going to have to beat them. There is a difference of that. That's why you need to understand the enemy course of action. For example, what would a rational resourced enemy do? Most dangerous, what action would cause the greatest harm or risk? Lastly, under course of action, build enemy sit temp, situational template, predict unit positions, movement, and intent. So let's go to the enemy course of action. Build an enemy sit temp, situational template, and that's where you want to predict unit positions, movement, and intent. And so let's tie in this conversation to a couple moving and working parts that all go to this planning process, in which, again, I'm trying to get better at myself. One thing that I should point out is a deliberate attack and a hasty attack, okay? Sometimes a hasty attack is basically just going to be where you could be doing a movement to contact, and within that movement to contact, you're going to stumble upon the enemy. And then sometimes even movement to contact is used in the intelligence preparation for the battlefield, in a sense, in that you may not know where the enemy is. You have to go and find them. But the two types of attack, a deliberate attack and a hasty attack, again, we're talking about the context of enemy courses of action. Two things that I would need to think about in a hasty attack, that there might not be very much time to plan. Then maybe there's things ahead of time before you launch out that you might think or know or take into consideration. And that's a hasty attack, if you will. A deliberate attack, though, you're going to want to achieve, I'm not sure if this is doctrinally correct, but I think it is. In a deliberate attack, you're going to want to identify at least 80% or higher of the enemy positions before that attack. So that goes back to this last step of the enemy course of action. Predict unit positions, movement, and intent. Because if you don't know where their flanks are, you don't know where their crew-served weapons are, all these different things, you're going to lose. Okay, that's what this planning process is for. It's for you to win. It's for you, again, as we talked about with METT-TC, to look at all the variables and to weigh those variables. Do you have an advantage, or does the enemy have an advantage? If the enemy has an advantage, you have two options. Either figure out how to get the advantage or abort the mission, I guess you could say. Okay, let's go back to the last couple steps. Step 5 is analyze friendly course of action. You want to assess your mission, and that is all under step 3. There's a sub-step 3, which is METT-TC and OACOC. We covered that earlier. Analyze terrain and weather, inventory troops, equipment, attachments, consider civil impacts, and rules of engagement. One thing that I would mention about the C part of METT-TC, which is the civilian impact component, that could definitely be a factor if you're an insurgent. If you are an insurgent, or a counterinsurgent, I should say, but let's just say you are an insurgent, you must take into consideration the civilian population. And one thing that we've mentioned along outlines in some of the previous videos that we've made is, let's make up a hypothetical scenario right now. If China invaded us tomorrow, if China invaded the United States tomorrow, there would be some citizens that side quickly with China. Okay, you would have to take those people in your community into account and consideration. It's not just like it's going to be this situation where, hey, all the Americans are the good guy, all Chinese invading are the bad guy. No, it can be very muddy and complicated, and there's a political element to that. But that's all within step 4, and analyze friendly. And again, that might be possibly the C part, the civilian part, at least one part of this, if you will. Step 6 of the military decision-making process is generate courses of action. And what you want to do is develop 2 to 3 distinct friendly courses of action. What are you going to do? You should look and run through a couple different scenarios. Are we going to attack this way? Are we going to attack this way? Are you going to do this and we're going to do this? Come up with a couple different possibilities. That's step 6. Develop 2 to 3 distinct friendly courses of action. Each should include schemes of maneuver, fire, and logistics. Ensure courses of action are feasible, acceptable, suitable. This is my little cheat sheet, okay? Then you want to compare those courses of action that you develop. Again, the MDMP is a very, very detailed, hours-long of colonels and generals sitting around, and captains making extremely highly detailed plans of this battle, which you may not have access to any of this, and that's why we have this cheat sheet. So step 7 in the plan, compare courses of action. Identify advantages, disadvantages of each course of action. Use decision matrix or wargaming techniques. Evaluate the risk versus mission. Step 8, select the best course of action. Select course of action with best balance of effectiveness and risk. Refine or adjust based on feedback and updates. So it would be something that you might want to talk about with the other small unit leaders in your team, this plan. Prepare the final plan and the frag order. Step 9, issue the op order. And this is you now. This is you, the leader. If you've ever wondered where op orders come from, this is going to be you developing in that. And that will be sub-step 5. So let's look at that really quick, because this is one last little gift in this thing. Is this very simplified op order that I put together for you. And I guess you could just, it's not exclusively, I don't want to say it's exclusively a civilian op order, but it's a much simplified. For example, let's just go back to this whole discussion of where we are. A very small unit fighting outnumbered and winning. You may not have all these other assets that that a giant military organization has at their disposal. For example, all the moving and working parts, the logistics and transportation. You might have some of this, but at a smaller version. But you're not going to have air assets. You're not going to have artillery and indirect fires. So all these things, you just need more of a simplified plan, okay? And essentially, if I could just add my own 2 cents to essentially what an op order is, it's just the 5 W's, okay? Who, what, where, when, and why. That's about all you need to do. Who's on my right, who's on my left, who's doing what, when are they doing it. There could be other details. This is a very simplified op order, which is in here. This whole document, I don't know, might be like 10 pages long. So with that, hopefully, again, my goal of this whole discussion is to help the small unit leaders out there take their tactical planning very, very simply to a much higher level with this essentially structured, it's a summary of the military decision-making process with sub-steps in here that'll help you, including the tactical task sheet that we talked about. That way, as we mentioned at the beginning of the video, if I gave you a rifle and said, hey, the enemy's over there. Okay, other than you just telling me, okay, I'm walking over there. What are you going to be doing? What's your, task and purpose? What forms of maneuver are you going to do? That's all summarized for you on that tactical task sheet. So with that, I think that's about all I have. I want to wrap this up because I don't like these things getting too long. And I appreciate all your guys' time. And I'm very thankful for you guys. Hopefully this video was a help. And with that, Morgan out.
Let them find my bones in flame. Let them say I bore no shame. I died a sword.